Today we're talking about St Bernardine of Siena, known as the Apostle of Italy.
What name holds the power to remake a nation? I mean, really, to stop wars, topple vices, and pull an entire people back from the edge of self-destruction? Well, this is the story of a man who wielded one such name.
You see, Bernardine's mission wasn't some kind of accident. It was a destiny, one that was declared long before he even began. He was born into a noble family, but his life was marked by loss from the very beginning. He was an orphan by the time he was 6. Pious relatives in Siena took him in, and he chose a life of study and prayer instead of chasing worldly things. Then, on his 22nd birthday, he renounced it all and joined the Franciscan order. His path was set.
Now get this, years before Bernardine was a famous preacher, his calling was actually foretold. The great apostle Saint Vincent Ferrer was preaching in Lombardy, and he stopped, looked right into the crowd, and announced that his own work, his own mantle, would fall on a young Franciscan who was right there among them. He was talking about Bernardine. He was predicting that Bernardine would evangelize the very parts of Italy that he himself couldn't reach.
But before he could even think about taking up that mantle, he had to face a trial by fire, a test that would forge his spirit in the face of certain death.
In the year 1400, the pestilence just fell upon Siena, and it was a scene of absolute horror. Commerce ground to a halt. The city basically became a graveyard, with the dead lying unburied in the streets.
And the scale of this, it's just hard to wrap your head around. In only 4 months, Siena lost 80,000 of its people. The hospital was completely overwhelmed. The caregivers themselves were dying. Hope was gone.
So what does Bernardine do? At just 20 years old, he walks directly into that plague-filled hospital. He organized his friends, he nursed the sick with his own 2 hands, and he buried the dead. He spent 4 months there, a willing victim, fully expecting to die. But God? Well, God had other plans. So, having survived the physical plague, Bernardine turned his attention to fighting the spiritual plague that was just eating his country alive. The Italy of his day was a battlefield, and I don't just mean armies. I mean a battlefield for souls. Bitter political factions, rampant sensuality, crippling loans, and just a widespread forgetfulness of God had poisoned the entire culture. This was the war Bernardine chose to wage.
And he didn't just condemn vice, he exposed it. In his sermons against gambling, he called it a rival church, one set up by the devil himself. The gambling house was its temple, the dice its prayer book, the obscene pictures were its sermons. And its goal wasn't salvation, it was the damnation of souls. He made the spiritual stakes devastatingly clear.
He was just as fierce against the political factions, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. He preached that their party spirit destroyed everything it touched. People were banished, homes were destroyed, lands were left to rot. He saw them swapping out the cross for their party badges, like owls and oxen, and turning their political loyalty into a form of idolatry that left nothing but ruin behind. So, to combat all these divisions, Bernardine chose a single, powerful weapon, but wielding it would bring him to the very brink of ruin. Against all the warring names of Guelph and Ghibelline, he preached the one name that could actually bring peace: Jesus. He had the holy name engraved on a wooden tablet surrounded by golden rays, and after his sermons, he would hold it up for the people to venerate. It became the symbol of his entire mission.
Of course, his enemies seized on this. They accused him of promoting idolatry, of heresy. The accusations got so serious he was summoned to Rome by Pope Martin V. He was forbidden to preach. His life's work, silenced. He faced public disgrace, but in the end, standing before the Pope himself, the charges were proven to be nothing more than jealous lies. He was completely vindicated.
And in the final chapter of his life, his mission would reach its ultimate conclusion, not in a sermon, but in a final, powerful sacrifice. Old and sick, Bernardine traveled to the city of Aquila. He found it completely consumed by a violent civil war between its noble families. Seeing all that hatred, he fell to his knees and prayed this prayer, offering his own blood if it could just bring peace to the city. A few days later, on May 20th, 1444, Bernardine died. As his body lay in the church, the fighting in the city erupted all over again. But then, suddenly, a miracle. Streams of blood began to flow from the dead saint's body. The sight was so shocking, so powerful, that the warring factions, just awestruck, laid down their weapons and made peace. His final prayer was answered. His very death was a victorious act.
We must make saints like these our friends by asking them for their prayers.